I found out monsters are real after going to a party with my best friend. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second and final part of this story. Before we begin, if you enjoy my content and wish to support me, please feel free to like this video and subscribe. Now, sit back, relax, and let us dive into tonight's story.
Did they do anything to her?
He asked, his voice so calm it scared me. I shook my head, thanking God I arrived fast enough. He accepted the answer, then met eyes with the ringleader of the small pack. After comparing the two, I decided I was more afraid of Mr. Walker. He had an unhuman coldness the other man lacked.
She's right, we didn't do anything. How about you take them and we don't talk about tonight? I would hate to have to call my father for this misunderstanding.
He raised his hands and let the knife drop to the ground. His voice sounded annoyed, and it was the first hint of emotion I had heard from him. I wanted to get the hell out of there. Mr. Walker was unarmed. Who knows what other weapons these three may have hidden? I assumed he would grab Maggie and leave. However, I greatly underestimated how angry a father could get, and ignored signs over the past 5 years hinting there was something very, very different about the man standing in front of us. Mr. Walker's head slightly moved to the right, and the bleeding groupie was launched into the forest. So fast I didn't even register the movement at first. A confused look came over the ringleader's face as his head moved, expecting to see the groupie still there. Mr. Walker twitched his head upwards, never taking his eyes off his main target. The football player yelped as he was lifted into the air by an invisible force, disappearing into the trees. His screams turned into a garbled mess, then cut as several loud cracking sounds echoed through the darkness. It was my turn to scream when a waterfall of blood came pouring down, soaking the leader from head to toe. He jolted back, losing all his composure. In a pathetic display, he tripped over his own feet in a panic to get away. Sobs started at the same time as the pleas for his life, then demanded to know what was going on. Mr. Walker took a step forward. The leader's left leg twisted like a dish rag. He screeched, body twitching in pain. Another step destroyed his right arm. In a flash, there was nothing left but an explosion of fleshy pulp. No matter how gruesome the sight was, I couldn't bring myself to look away. Even with his injuries, he was still able to drag himself along, tears freely flowing down his face, washing away some of the blood. Mr. Walker let him crawl along the rough forest floor, leaving a trail of blood behind. Even if he got away from the monster so close by, he was a goner from his injuries alone. Somehow he knew that. He still wanted to get some last words in. The person trying to be a monster easily cracked when he came across a real one. "What are you?" he whispered, sounding like a child.
Anne, please take Maggie and bring her home.
Mr. Walker hadn't turned his head to address me. I think if he did, I might have fainted. Since my best friend was so small I could get her on my back, I didn't stop to see what else happened in those woods that night. My heart simply couldn't take it anymore. All my muscles ached, and I was drenched in sweat by the time I loaded Maggie into my truck. Wasting no time, I rushed away from the party, away from that forest. It was a miracle I didn't get a speeding ticket. I should have just dropped her off at home and left without ever going back to that house after what I saw. It took some effort to get her tucked into bed. I wasn't sure what they gave her or how much, so I made sure she was sleeping on her side. That's what you do with a drunk person, right? I cursed, realising I left my phone in the woods. I should have gone home. It just didn't feel right to leave my best friend in such a vulnerable state. I stayed in her room all night, watching over her. Bored out of my mind, I found myself looking around her room, staring at the items on the shelves. I never realised until then how many interests of ours we have because of each other. She had a book series I had just gotten into because she recommended them, and she owned a DVD book set of shows I had suggested to her. Monster Father or not, it would hurt if I had to lose my best friend because of tonight. Near dawn, the front door opened. My body tensed up, hearing footsteps come from the stairs. My heart beat hard in my chest as the door cracked open, a set of cold eyes staring into the room.
Wash your face.
Mr. Walker told me and closed the door. I had rubbed away the blood but didn't properly wash it away. I waited to hear him go down the hallway into his room before heading to the bathroom. My phone had been placed on the side of the sink. Was her father angry? I did take her to the party. If he could do that to those guys without raising a hand, what could he do to me? Did he want to make sure Maggie was being looked after before dealing out the punishment? I decided not to wait to find out. Silently, I crept down the stairs, slowly heading to the door, not hearing him behind me. My body tensed as I took the first step outside, moments away from freedom.
Anne,
I stopped halfway down the porch steps, blood cold. I had no choice but to turn around and face him. "Are you pissed at us?" I asked in a trembling voice.
I am angry. Not at you. She's not going to be a child forever. She will want to have new experiences, good and bad. I am angry I cannot always be there for her, and she'll have troubles in her life. I'm glad she had you tonight.
I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Tears came to my eyes that I rubbed away. I had been the one to pressure Maggie into this, and I had taken my eyes off of her. I knew there was a risk of someone doing something to her or me. We were girls after all. But what were the chances we would come across a deranged lunatic and his little followers? "Are the cops going to ask questions?" I said, worry filling my thoughts. There had been a lot of blood, and 3 young people were going to be missing. At least one of them should have families that cared enough to even file a police report.
No, you weren't seen with them by anyone that night, and the remains will look like an animal attack. Tragic, but reasonable.
I felt my blood run cold. I wanted to ask the same question I had heard the night before. What was this man? And yet I dreaded the possibilities. Is Maggie... you two look alike, but she doesn't seem... I said, trying to get my thoughts in order. He crossed his arms, considering my question. This was the longest conversation we'd ever had. For a moment, he wasn't going to tell me what I needed to know. I may have been the first person to see his other side and live.
It is complicated.
He started, deeming me worthy of information.
I found this house years ago in shambles. Squatters had taken over. I was looking for a meal and found one. The woman was already dead from an overdose. I am not certain if that was Maggie's mother. Her father attempted to sell his infant daughter to me for his next fix. I devoured him, then stole his appearance. I had planned to eat the child as well, but she was so small.
I had no idea about any of this. Since I moved here years ago, I didn't know what kind of place this neighbourhood was, like when Maggie was younger. I didn't know how I felt about what I had just been told. Mr. Walker wasn't human. I felt that since the start, yet somehow he raised a healthy and well-rounded child, all the way to a naive yet perfect teen. I think it's good you found her, I said after some thought. He shifted on the spot, appearing uncomfortable in a rare display of emotion.
Killing a person is stealing away all the choices their life may have held. I didn't just steal his life and appearance. I took away any possibilities of him getting his life back on track. I've considered if it would have been better for Maggie to be raised by a human, regardless of his hardships. I
would have thought the person in front of me would never second guess themselves. Mr. Walker had been a perfect father this entire time. I would have rather a monster like him watch over my best friend than a man who would toss her life away for nothing. Ah, that's whatever. You are her dad. Plain and simple. I don't care about the moral aspects, just that you're the best person for the job. Unless the first person who dumps her is also going to experience an animal attack. He raised an eyebrow, almost amused by the fact I swore in front of him for the first time.
I had been worried over my reaction as I watched her grow older. I always knew I could not protect her from the entire world, and it would harm her in the long run if she never dealt with hardships. However, what if someone hurt her, like really hurt her? What would I do then? So far, it has not been an issue. I can be there for her through breakups and rejections. I would imagine last night was a special case.
He nodded at his explanation, but it didn't make him less scary in my eyes.
I also considered if raising her would soften my feelings towards humans. If I would see them as someone's child, I could not harm them if needed. It seems as if I shall always care more about my child than another's.
Yet, still scary as hell. I would never accidentally hurt Maggie, but now I really couldn't do anything to upset her. Mr. Walker appeared to like me well enough, though. Still, it was a risk I couldn't take.
I am aware this is a large request. I would like you to support her over the next few days. She will be confused about what happened when she wakes up. I do not want her to think I am upset with her, and therefore cannot admit I know about the outing.
For a big, scary monster, he sure was a softie when it came to her. You're going to make me do all the work? I half joked.
Yes,
He admitted, without an ounce of shame. Since I guess you did save both of us, I suppose I'll stick around. I do care about her more than I'm scared of you. I shrugged, not realising what I suggested until the words were out of my mouth. I felt my face turn red as I mentally assured myself that girls just talked like that about their best friends all the time. It didn't mean anything beyond that. I thought I was clear when he started to go back inside.
that reminded me of the reason why I came out here to speak with you in the first place. When are you two going to commit to prom? I would like to buy Maggie a dress soon.
I had never been so mortified in my life. I would have rather he killed me than question when I was going to be brave enough to ask out his daughter. We're not, she doesn't see me that way, I sputtered.
I love you both no matter how dense you are. Ask her out before I tell her for you.
He threatened. You wouldn't dare, I gasped in horror.
Yes, I would. I am a monster after all.
With that, he shut the door in my face, leaving me with an embarrassing task that I thought might kill me. With a lot of new motivation, I finally did confess to Maggie after she recovered from the shock of the failed party. As far as I could tell, she was aware her father was different. For now, though, I want to keep it like that. I don't want her to know everything about her father. I know her and how she would accept him no matter what. Right now, Mr. Walker was just too scared to face that fact. We needed to wait until he was ready. Or maybe force him into it like he did with me and Maggie going to prom. I'm not sure if I would have gathered myself enough to finally ask her out without that push from him. I needed to repay the favour. He is a monster, no doubt about that. He killed 3 people and framed it so perfectly. Everyone assumed that it was a random animal attack, like he had planned without any questions. I don't know what is truly hiding underneath his stolen appearance. Sure, he still scares me, but as long as I can be with the person I care about most, I think I can deal with a future monster father-in-law.